All right, today we're going deep on a story that's all about immense power, obscene wealth, and just truly horrific secrets. It's a story that, honestly, is still unfolding, and it leaves behind this massive trail of unanswered questions. This, of course, is the story of Jeffrey Epstein.
And really, it all comes down to this one central, haunting question that just hangs over everything. August 10th, 2019. Jeffrey Epstein is found dead in his cell in a maximum security federal jail. The official cause of death? Suicide. But the circumstances, they are so bizarre, they fueled this global theory that he didn't kill himself at all. He was silent.
Yeah, and when you start to look closer, that official story really starts to fall apart. So Epstein was in one of the most secure jails in the entire country. And yet, on that one specific night, the security cameras right outside his cell, they malfunctioned. The two guards who were supposed to be watching him, they fell asleep for hours. And maybe the most suspicious part of all, he had just been taken off suicide watch only days before. Is that an unbelievable string of coincidences? Or is it something else entirely?
To even begin to understand how someone ends up in a situation like that, we've got to rewind. Who exactly was Jeffrey Epstein? And how in the world did he build an empire that gave him a key to the inner circles of the world's most powerful people?
His origin story is almost as mysterious as his death. Epstein actually started out in the 1970s as a math teacher at a really prestigious private school. But he was smart, and he quickly used his connections to jump over to Wall Street. That's where he got in with billionaires like Leslie Wexner, the guy who founded Victoria's Secret, and he started managing their massive fortunes.
And boy, did he get rich himself. We're talking about a level of wealth that is just hard to even wrap your head around. He had the largest private mansion in Manhattan, a gigantic 75,000-acre ranch out in New Mexico, a luxury place in Paris, and his own private Boeing 727 jet. But of all his assets, the most infamous was his private island down in the Caribbean.
So the island's official name was Little St. James, but the world would soon know it simply as Epstein Island. It was this 72-acre private paradise, right? A luxury playground for the global elite. But underneath all that beauty, there were some really disturbing secrets. There are reports of underground tunnels, a very strange temple-like building. All of it just fuels the speculation about what was really going on there, far, far away from any prying eyes.
And look, this wealth, it wasn't just for living a fancy lifestyle. It was a tool. It was the key that unlocked the doors to the absolute highest levels of power. And it helped him create this massive network of connections that would, for a time, both build and protect his whole criminal enterprise.
At the very center of this network was his private jet. The media gave it a nickname, the Lolita Express. And that plane, it became a symbol of his incredible access and of the scandal itself. This was how he shuttled powerful people all over the world, and the flight logs from that plane would later become just critical pieces of evidence. And the guest list on that plane, it was a who's who of global power. You had former President Bill Clinton, who flew on the jet at least 26 times. Donald Trump, he was a friend and a neighbor back in the 90s. Britain's Prince Andrew got so tangled up in all this that he was eventually stripped of his royal duties. And the list just keeps going. Tech billionaires like Bill Gates, tons of Hollywood stars.
So you have to ask the terrifying question, how did he have so much influence over these people? Well, when the FBI finally raided his properties, they found stacks and stacks of CDs and photos. This led to a really chilling theory, that Epstein wasn't just entertaining his guests, he was collecting compromising material on them, blackmailing them.
Because behind the facade, behind the private jets and the powerful friends, was a horrific reality. And let's be clear, this wasn't just one man's crimes. This was a sophisticated criminal enterprise, and it was dedicated to the abuse of underage girls.
And he did not act alone. There were two key players right at the center of this network. You had Epstein. He was the mastermind, using all his money and power. But then there was Ghislaine Maxwell. She was his girlfriend, a British socialite, and she was the co-mastermind and the recruiter. She would allegedly target young girls, sometimes right outside their schools, and lure them in with these false promises of jobs and money.
For years, the victims were silenced by fear. But that all changed in 2005. A young woman named Courtney Wild showed just incredible courage. She went to the police in Palm Beach, Florida, and she filed the very first report against Epstein. It was this single act of bravery that started a chain reaction, beginning the long, slow process of exposing this entire network.
But the road to justice? It was anything but straightforward. The initial legal response to what Epstein did has been called one of the biggest jokes in judicial history. It's a story of justice being denied long before it was finally, at least partially, delivered.
So even with all this evidence mounting up, Epstein never faced a jury back in 2008. Instead, his team of high-powered lawyers and a U.S. attorney named Alexander Acosta cooked up this secret sweetheart plea deal. The victims were completely kept in the dark, and Epstein was allowed to plead to much lesser state charges. This let him avoid a federal prosecution that could have put him in prison for life. And the result of that deal? This number right here says it all. 13 months. That's it. And it wasn't even a tough sentence. He got VIP treatment, leaving the jail every single day for work release at his office, then just coming back at night to sleep. He was a free man in just over a year.
For about a decade, the whole story just went quiet. But the fight wasn't over. In 2018, an investigative journalist named Julie K. Brown published this explosive series for the Miami Herald called Perversion of Justice. It exposed that secret deal to the entire world and created this firestorm of public outrage. That reporting led directly to Epstein's rearrest in 2019 and eventually to Ghislaine Maxwell's trial and conviction.
And this time, the outcome was very different. While Epstein escaped a final judgment with his death, his chief accomplice did not. In 2022, Ghislaine Maxwell was sentenced to 20 years in federal prison for her central role in the trafficking operation. 20 years. A pretty stark contrast to the 13 months Epstein got.
Which brings us right back to where we started. Epstein is dead, Maxwell is in prison. But this is very, very much an unfinished story, because the secrets he took to the grave, they might still be buried in mountains and mountains of documents.
Now, in the aftermath, there was at least some kind of restitution. A victims' compensation fund was set up using Epstein's estate, and it has since paid out over $121 million to more than 150 of his survivors. It's an acknowledgement of the immense harm that was done. But money is not the same thing as full transparency, and the scale of what we still don't know, it's staggering. It's estimated that there are over 1 million pages of documents connected to the Epstein case, flight logs, calendars, testimony, that are still sealed and hidden away from all of us.
You know, this whole story is really just a chilling reminder of a fundamental truth, and this quote captures it perfectly. Power and money can hide a crime, but they cannot erase it. The crimes happened, the damage was done, and the shadow of those crimes still hangs over some of the most powerful people on the planet.
And that leaves us right here with this final, unavoidable question. With so much information still under lock and key, this story is so far from over. What other names are in those files? What secrets are still waiting to be exposed? And will we ever, truly, know the full story?